I gotta wait. How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
Welcome to the share, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
I'm Dreme, a black woman with many beautiful interconnecting identities. A few I will name at this moment as we get started on this podcast journey together. A Bostonian, born and raised in the inner city, Dorchester and Roxbury neighborhoods, to a teenage single mother who has my whole heart. An educator, I've been working with youth and children since my teenage years, and formally, I have been teaching almost a decade now. That's wild to think about. An entrepreneur, I am the founder of The Chair, a black and brown centered tech platform dedicated to supporting people on their hair journey, where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a more joyous experience. I have a workable site, my prototype. It took me 2 years to build, and now I'm on this adventure that you're currently on with me. My goal for this podcast is to share stories, black stories, educator stories, entrepreneurship stories, and hair stories. I want you to leave each episode with the opportunity to gain new insight, just a glimpse into my world or the worlds that are featured on my podcasts, a little chuckle during your day or night, possibly a little anger to encourage you to advocate for justice, and hope to continue learning and dreaming. So come in and listen to the beautiful voices in the chair as they share their stories, starting with me.
Where we share stories in the chair.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much for joining my podcast. Can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I am Erin Slayton. I am 27 years old, currently living in Taunton, Massachusetts. I am an educator, an artist, a small business owner, all the things. I do it all.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that's me.
Yeah. So Aaron and I met many years ago at a camp in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire. It was you and your sister, right? Like we met all those years ago. And then, at that time, there was no Facebook or anything. So we had shared a couple letters back and forth. My mother didn't let me have a cell phone, so there was no calling anybody, things like that. And then, life happens, and then we end up become Facebook friends. And it's just like we've just been following each other on Facebook ever since.
Mm-hmm.
You identify as biracial, yes?
Yes, I do.
And so what is it like in terms of being a biracial educator? Do you feel that the way you approach your teaching is different?
Absolutely. So I am one of very few teachers of color at my school. I teach at a predominantly white, very small town, suburban, pretty similar to what I grew up in, actually, community demographic. And being one of the very few public teachers of color, educators of color that my students are exposed to. I've asked a number of years. Next year will be my 7th year.
Let's go. Snaps. Come on, educator.
And I still love it, which not everyone can say. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be in this profession and have the opportunity that I do to work with young people. But I asked them, I'm like, have you guys ever had a teacher of color? Like, have you ever had any black teachers or anything like that? And most of them have never. So I kind of take that as a very self-aware opportunity to be like, okay, so I know that I am in this trusted position as your teacher in front of you, that it sees you at least 180 days, give or take here or there or whatever. So I know what role I'm stepping into, and I fully embody that as we're going to talk about stuff that maybe your white teachers aren't as comfortable discussing, or we're going to kind of lean into those uncomfortable moments, knowing that it's good for you. You're going to grow because of this. No one's going to melt away because we had a conversation about race in the English classroom. So I definitely like my identity in the classroom. I try to be as transparent as I can with them about like my own biases, my own prejudice, my own things that I've worked through, knowing that if I'm asking them to do that kind of work in our humanities class, then I should be transparent about what I've done too. So that absolutely impacts the way that I teach and the things that I talk about and the connections that I make to the literature that we're reading in our class.
Do you have a favorite lesson or a favorite book that comes to mind that you've taught that like incorporates your multiple identities and it was a space for the kids to see their own?
So I teach grades 9 and 12.
Nice.
For freshmen, we have 4 books that we move through throughout the course of the year. And then I'm really grateful that my district does not prepackage curriculum. I wrote the curriculum for all 4 of the units.
Let's go. Come on now, snaps. Let's go.
I'm glad to be able to kind of take things in the direction that I see fit will benefit the most for the community in front of me, as opposed to like, oh, this isn't even relevant to you and I have to teach it anyway. Like I'm not kind of, my hands aren't really tied in that regard, which is really nice to kind of have the freedom to move like wherever the passion and curiosity in the classroom takes us. Like we can kind of spend a little bit more time. But the book that we just ended grade 9 curriculum with was The Glass Castle. So it's a memoir. It's written by a white woman, Jeanette Walls, who was growing up in like the 60s and 70s. So in her life story, there's a lot that touches on like the cultural climate of the 60s and 70s in America. And like she talks about like growing up and like seeing like all this aftermath of like the Jim Crow era and like it's still kind of being not necessarily being the law but being the norm that like, oh, the Black people only swim at this time of day and the whites go in the afternoon. Like her experiences of all of that, like through her own eyes. And then we also get like a big chunk of the text has her family is staying with her super racist grandmother. Yep. And it's like N-word flying left and right. And it's like, we could take 2 approaches teaching that book in the classroom. I could explore that, just talk about the literature, just talk about like her experiences and like what she got out of it. Or what we do instead is really take like a pulse and like kind of see like, well, if we unpack this for a minute, like instead of just like normalizing all of this like weird problematic stuff that's happening in the book and just being like, oh, it just lives in the book, that's that. Instead kind of look at that like, well, okay, if literature is the vehicle through which we understand the world around us, then like we need to like take pause and like kind of unpack like, okay, well, what was going on with race in the 60s and 70s in America that helps us understand what's going on with race in 2024. So we do a lot of that, like looking backward in order to understand the present moment, in order to do better for the future. And like my students would all like attest to like, I am always telling them like, okay, so what? I want you to be able to answer transparently, so what? Why are we even talking about this stuff? Like, who cares about Walls and her random memoir life story? Like, so what? And like the takeaway or the like the overall purpose should be something related to like, well, how is this relevant to my life when I walk outside of Miss Slayton's classroom and like the way that I understand the people around me and like the thoughts that people have and the ideology that they've been ingrained into, especially if it's older people. Because I tell them, I'm like, you might have a racist grandmother, right? Like your grandmother might be very much like Irma Walls in the book. So like us unpacking the character helps us unpack people in real life. That's the relevance right there. Like, oh, so what? Well, you are always going to be surrounded by people who are different than you. And like, if we can, through literature, talk about what's going on here, then it might help you make sense of like your world outside of the book or outside of your window or your door or whatever. And like, again, if I weren't a teacher of color, would I have wrote the curriculum to kind of lean into those things? Probably not, because it's easier and more convenient to not talk about these things. And like when I get to those lessons in my classroom, or if I know like, oh, those things are coming up next week, like we're about to get to that point of the book, like I have to do my own like prep work to be like, okay, like when this stuff comes up, not to like get too caught up in the emotions of it all, because like it's real. And like, so they feel the weight of its importance instead of just being like, oh, this is just another stupid book, like we have to read. Like, like, because like, you know, like especially high schoolers can be like that. So like getting them to realize, like, so what? Why do we care? Why are we doing this work? It's so obvious to them once we do it that like, getting to read their reflections after doing the work. There, so many of my students' final reflections were like, this entire year we did stuff that mattered. And I know why. And my mind has changed so much.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Look, it's my commercial. We will be right back.
It's more than just a bad hair day. It's a journey. Finding the right hairstyle isn't easy, nor is finding the right stylist or the right products. Looking in every corner of the web gets messy, overwhelming, and exhausting. All the ads, the articles, the products, the videos, it shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And now, it isn't. The Chair. A black and brown centered platform where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a new joyful path on your hair journey. Avoid the clutter, save yourself hours, months, and even years of research and poor trial and error. Everything you need and only what you need is in one place. Hairboards made by people like you, for you. Find the right products, the right people, the right answers for you, stress-free. Join the Chair community and make every day a great hair day. When you share your pain, you allow others to help you. And when you share your success, you help others get theirs. Lean on the Chair. We got you. No stress, no strife. In the chair. The chair. The chair. All right.
Oh, and if you're interested to learn more about my experiences as a Black woman and educator in Guangzhou, China, I wrote my first ebook titled Nowhere and Everywhere, Captured Emotions of a Beautifully Broken Love Story. It is on lulu.com. Take a read and see some beautiful photography of mine. Enjoy the rest of the show.
The chair.
With one of our books, like a classic of Mice and Men. So people have read Of Mice and Men. You've heard of it. It's canonized. It's classic literature or whatever. And the way that I teach it is I take a critical disability lens and look at, well, why do we have so many disabled characters in this story when it's written by an old dead white guy who wasn't disabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he writes Lenny as the super problematic, autistic savant kind of character archetype, how does that help us understand autistic people in real life? Or is that problematic representation give us like a negative stigma when we look at disabled people and automatically assume that disability is a bad thing? Mm-hmm. Right? It's less about like, what do we have to teach in the curriculum and more about like me coming to it with my own identity and understandings of the world and why it all matters, and not wanting my students to be like, this is just another stupid book in English class. Like, I want you to be able to make those connections to like, oh, we're reading Of Mice and Men, but we're learning about disabilities. And we're learning there are disabled people in my classroom that I might not know. Like, it might be visible, it might be invisible. Well, you've probably never talked transparently, authentically about disability before. Like, let's do it here, right now, with your teacher, kind of guiding you through it, just assuming that it's all brand new for everybody. And I do a lot of relying on like resources. So to be like, I know that everybody's coming to the conversation with like different perspectives, different experiences, different connections with disability or race or whatever the big real world topic is. If we rely on resources and look at them together, then like some people might have like outside knowledge that they can kind of bring to it. But if not, then like at least we're all looking at this one resource and we can kind of make our own minds up about it. Instead of trying to be like, we all need to be experts when we come away from the conversation, and instead take a more like we do like inquiry-based learning. So it's like we're just complicating things and challenging things and asking questions of the way that things are and whether they should be like that, or if there's anything problematic, or like who's advantage or disadvantaged by these kind of things that we're looking at or whatever. And like getting them to kind of take that approach of we're just seeing where our curiosity takes us, which I said like earlier, like allows us to spend more time. Like when everybody's confused, like, okay, let's take a pause. Let's lean into this instead of being like, oh no, we have to get through the next 10 pages of the book. I'm glad that I'm not like kind of tethered to the curriculum. I don't teach MCAS grades. There's no like strict standardized testing in grades 9 or 12. Okay. So like that's also kind of freeing me up a little bit in like the time that we can take and do what we do. Which I know that not every educator like has that freedom and like privilege and accessibility, but I am grateful that I work in a district that allows me to kind of entrust me to do the work that should be happening.
Yeah, right. You're able to not only do inquiry-based learning, to be able to dig into books and dig into literature, teach all of skills, standards, Common Core, all the things, but actually be able to wrap it in real world discussions that are happening in their daily lives.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they find is the most valuable anyway. Like they don't care about like the grammar and like the phonetics. Like they want to know, well, this character that we looked at yesterday, like why is she like that? Why are people so hateful? Why are people so racist? Like those are the questions that they want to talk about, not, oh, well, what happened on page 52? Okay, reading comprehension, yeah, there's value in that. And like a lot of what we do encompasses that. But at the end of the day, if you hate reading and writing and you're just in this class because you have to take English, like I at least want you to come away with some grander takeaway than just like this class was painful. Like I don't want that to be any of my students' experiences. So like even at the beginning of the year when they're like, I hate English class, like I'm not good at it, like blah blah blah. And I'm like, give it a chance. Like, you will get something out of this class if you put in effort. And like at the end of the day, like everybody's reflection, like saw some sort of movement from day one to the last day, which I'm like, good. You're responsible for your personal growth too. Like it can't just all be like, I loved every single book that we read. It's like, no, how did you move as a person and how has your perspective broadened or deepened or whatever based on what we did in here? That has value inherently more so than what grade did you get at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something I think about, and I'm always curious about it when it comes to like biracial teachers. So people can't see you, so they don't know that you're very fair skinned. You could be white passing in certain circumstances if you want to. When growing up, when talking to biracial or sometimes multiracial people, they always felt like stressed or forced to pick an identity to be able to make it less complicated for them when it came to talking to their friends or when they're meeting strangers for the first time. I always remember I went to grad school with a woman who identified as Black, but she had just like different colored eyes, and she always said that when people asked her about her identity, it felt like they were trying to figure out who she was without actually getting to know her. So you like being absolutely clear in your biracial identity, do you feel that comes across to kids who happen to be multiracial, or even your white coworkers who are like, she is biracial, so she understands us as well? Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually in undergrad. So I took an undergrad class where my professor was actually doing a study on us. So we all had to like sign these papers, and it was actually like a study on race. Because she was in the works of co-authoring a book all about something about like getting rid of like literary whiteness. How like whiteness is always like a default in literature and like a lot of like English studies and stuff like that. And like she was writing this book with this other professor, and they were using our class or both of our classes as like a study. And one thing that I did in that class was like had to write a paper, and it was all about like the question that you opened this podcast with like, how does your racial identity impact how you're going to be as a teacher? Because like at this point, like we were in undergrad, we were pre-service teachers. Like, hadn't yet gotten out and like boots on the ground yet. It was more like she was forcing us to kind of reckon with that question of, well, everybody has a race, no matter what you look like. So how is your race and your identity and whatever baggage you come to the classroom with going to impact your teaching? So we had to like write this like, kind of like reflective, introspective essay about like where I kind of saw that coming into play and like how race has been, I don't know, a part of my educational experience in schooling and how that will impact the teaching on the other end and so on and so forth. And I kind of wrote about how like all my life I've occupied, I always say like I'm Black and I'm white, which if you think about those two colors, like that would make like a gray. But I kind of like coined like this term that I was using in my paper, like the middle brown. I'm not Black, I'm not white, I'm like this middle brown, right? Like, and it's this kind of metaphorical embodiment of like, I refuse to pick a side and like nobody will ever make me because I decide who I am, how I present myself. Like my dad is always like, I grew up, my dad always told me like, you can only control how you are presented. You can't control how you're perceived. That's somebody else's problem, right? Like, however you perceive me, that's on you. I can present myself however which way I want and how I see fit and authentically choose to show my inside out. And like beyond that, do with it what you will. So like, I've never really taken on that pressure and that stress of like needing to, I don't know, fit myself in a box, or if I'm going to tell people I'm biracial, well, I better talk like this, but dress like this and act like this and wear my hair like this. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to buy into any of that. Like, I was raised, my mom is white and my dad is Black. And like, both of them had full efforts in being like, you are you. And like, nobody can take that away from you. Nobody's going to change that. Like, you are this beautiful blend, like this middle brown that you embody. And like, it is what it is. And for better or for worse, for privilege or for disadvantage, like you embody it all. Like cahoots to them for like raising me with that confidence, because like maybe not everybody did. And like not every biracial person had that experience. Like, I'm sure a lot of people had like those conflicting feelings of like, well, which side do I choose? And when people ask me, like, what are you? Like, what do I say or whatever? And like, I don't know, I took a lot of time to like do that internal work and like think through so that I'm not confused about who I am. And I know how to put myself in the world so that when I come before my students and I ask them to do that work, I can be transparent about, yeah, there were some muddy waters along the way, sure. But like coming out of it and like doing that work earlier than later, like then saving it till I'm like 45 and like, oh, what is life? Like, to be like cool with who I am and how I present, and however you perceive me, that's on you.
This has been amazing, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to share your stories in the chair.
Thanks. Oh my God, it is such a pleasure. And I love reconnecting, like we said earlier, like with Facebook and whatnot, like especially when we were young, that stuff wasn't there. So like being able to like be like, oh my God, Dreme, I remember her. Like, cheers to you.
Thank you. You're doing amazing things, and the fact that I get to see it and be a part of it, and you getting to share it on my podcast is just beautiful and truly a blessing.
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
Thank you for listening to an episode of The Chair. I, of course, would love your continued support. Let me know what you think of this episode by doing all the things. Subscribe, comment, and come back next week, every week. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. Or if you are like me, enjoy that moonlight and that one star under all your city lights. Love you. Talk to you later.
The chair.
How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
We support her. Shit.
Do your
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story. Where we share